Okay, we are live. Welcome back and hello everyone to another growth hacking and business development workshop. We are here for our third workshop. We're here with Lisa, Brian from Wolf, and also Porto. He's back from the Gift Capital team. We had him also in a previous workshop. So good to see you guys again. Today, we're going to be talking about branding and marketing strategy. So this is a question which comes up quite a lot when it comes to sort of business development, where to take your product and how to sort of take it to that next level. I'll hand it over to Brian and Lisa, who are going to be hosting today's session. But I'll stay in the background as well because obviously as a designer, I also sort of come from a sort of branding perspective and a little bit of marketing as well. So maybe I'll also sort of chime in with some of my words when relevant. But I'll hand it over to you guys now. Thanks again for hosting this. And if anyone has any questions, we are live on YouTube. Just drop them in the comments and we'll make sure to get them to Lisa and Brian in real time. Cool. Over to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ed. So nice to meet everyone. My name is Brian Atchu. I am the head of marketing and operations at Wolf, the Lightning Accelerator. We launched about a month ago, and our goal is to fund and empower the future of companies building on Lightning. So I really love the work that is happening with Bolt Fund and wanted to get involved. So Lisa had suggested some growth hacking workshops and decided to raise my hand to talk a little bit about branding and marketing. So happy to be here, and yeah, I think we can kick it right off. Lisa, anything else you want to share today? I know you're a star already talking in two of these.
Yeah, exactly. So I will focus on sharing my my screen here. We'll see here. All right. How does that look? Nothing.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, great. So to start, I want to keep it really interactive as we discuss things throughout this. I think to start, just talking about like a little bit of like the philosophy behind branding. Just like branding is really kind of the telling of the story of your company, and especially for like an early stage startup or for developers just starting to build a product. It's really not even just telling the story of your company to potential customers, but you're also telling the story to potential investors too. Your public facing brand is kind of your first part of your pitch if people are going to find your company and be interested in it. Overall, like a really high level topic I just want to bring up is that like you want your brand to come across clearly and be easy to understand, because the easier it is to understand your brand, the easier it is for people to talk about your brand. Whether that's just people sharing by word of mouth, telling you about what product you're building, or if, like I said, if it's investors talking to people about like, look at this exciting new thing, what is it? You want to have that line that comes across easily. It's Groupon for Bitcoin. It's like something like whatever you're discovering, like you want to figure out a simple way to explain what it is you do. And make it easy to understand why you're doing it as well. So we'll talk a little bit about like an overall branding strategy to start. And then Porto will, as we go along, we're going to kind of take some time to talk about Giftcash and how we can work things in there. So, before I go into brand strategy, you want to just give a refresher about Giftcash and what it is that you're building, and then we'll, that way there's some reference for people as we go along. You're on mute, Porto.
All right. First of all, thanks for your time, Brian. It's going to be extremely helpful, this workshop. So to give you guys a quick perspective, we are building Giftcash, which is going to be a Bitcoin infrastructure gift cards for companies. So our focus is to help companies to give away gift cards, Bitcoin gift cards, to their employees or to their customers so they can achieve their goals. So for example, if their goal is to sell more or is to engage more users, they can leverage that on Bitcoin gift cards. Or if their leverage is their goal is to have more engagement in the employees. So we want to be an option for those companies to give away like bonuses in Bitcoin instead of just Amazon gift cards or Visa gift cards. So that's the idea.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. So let's talk about some of the things I have highlighted here. So when it comes to your mission statement is going to be, to define the purpose of your business. You want to just basically be very clear to decide, like, to say what it is you're doing. And I think it's very important because as you do any kind of content or you talk about your brand, everything kind of feeds back into that mission statement. When you talk about brand vision, this is kind of like the forward-thinking future vision of the business that you're building. Your core values are what differentiate you from your competitors. Some people like to just put a couple big bold words or talk about it as your ethos behind your company, but I like to get a core value, like what makes your company unique. And then your brand personality is something that I'd love to talk about when we get into it too. But that really comes back to how people kind of receive your brand. So that goes into logo and colors, what kind of images you try to use. Like, do you use people in your images or buildings? Are you black and white or color? And what type of graphics you use and the typography. So that's kind of how I picture brand. That kind of, wraps it all up into one neat thing. So I think to start, if we want to talk about GiftCash, we can just start talking about that. Like, if you had one line for a mission statement that defines what your business does, what comes to mind when you first start thinking about that?
This is hard for an engineer. But I was on the very first workshop, we were more focused on being like a solution so that businesses can leverage in our solution to sell more. Or to achieve their goals in terms of selling or having a better return on investment on marketing. As we approach some businesses, we think this is a little bit harder to sell because it's too far away from what they're used to do. So we decided to try to pivot the focus to employee engagement.
Yep.
So if we switch the focus to employee engagement, then I think it changes a lot of all of the things that you were mentioning right now, like mission statement and brand vision and stuff like that. So I just wanted to clarify this, that we're going to speak to employee engagement platforms quite soon. So it's going to be very helpful for us in order to have a better pitch for them. But I don't know. I have to think about regarding mission statement and brand vision and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I do think the employee engagement side is a huge thing of it, just from the marketplace itself. Like, there's a lot of value and interest in that space. I mean, I just saw a stat the other day, something about 40% of workers are disengaged at the moment. I have my, before I worked for Wolf and I was with NYDIG for a while. And then before that I was with Prudential Financial. So I did a lot of work in the group insurance and retirement, which employee activation and campaigns and whatnot. There's a ton of value in that space, and there's ways that they want to get people engaged. So I do like that angle. It's an interesting one to approach. So I guess your goal is to incentivize employees with Bitcoin. I guess that's if you're going with the employee engagement angle, does that feel like it's there?
Yeah, it does feel right. It feels right.
And just so you know, when we go through this, you do not figure this out in one session. I can tell you from myself and colleagues, when we throw stuff out there and then it's all right, give me a day. You got to say it a few times. Honestly, there's things, even as we continue building Wolf, that we come up with a name for something and that's the name, and a few weeks later, you don't love it. Don't feel pressure if you don't have a perfect answer for all of these, because sometimes it's just asking that question that gets the wheels turning. But I think that's a good one. Incentivizing employees with Bitcoin, inspiring employees with Bitcoin.
There's also the aspect of increasing global adoption of Bitcoin, because we're going to provide a way for people to have Bitcoin that some people would not have that before. So I don't know if that's a relevant thing to put on a mission statement.
So it is, and this is something that like we won't spend a ton of this time in this section because I want to do some of the other things before we come back here. But that is something to think about because like when it comes to the marketing and branding something, I tend to like just constantly ask myself why, like why would the employer want this? Why would the employee want this? Why would they build like why do they believe my brand that they're going to want to push this forward? So when it comes to the increasing adoption side, you may run into employers that are like, oh, I don't want to give them Bitcoin. Oh, didn't I hear it's going down? To like, you know, to the builders on Bitcoin, the price fluctuations don't matter. People are out there building, they're building the future of decentralized finance. To general people on the street, you know, an employer may not be interested in increasing adoption. What's in it for them? So it is an interesting point, and you will meet people. I'm sure that you meet someone at a company that's going to be excited about that premise, where like they're you know, they hold Bitcoin themselves and they want to increase adoption. So like, this is incredible to give my employees, but at the same time, the core value of like what your brand stands for, it's like sometimes it can be like wishful thinking to be like, oh, they're going to want to help increase adoption. So that's why I think it's like you got to think about what your brand does and why they care. It's like they care because their employees are getting excited to maybe win some Bitcoin or get rewarded with some Bitcoin. So something to think about that. It's like where I get caught up is just like always asking why. So then in terms of like the brand vision, I think we could let's skip brand vision for now because I want to come back to it as we discuss some other things. But like some core values in terms of why you feel like your company is different right now. Do you feel like it's that, you know, this is something you don't see other people doing, incentivizing with Bitcoin? Like, is that it? Like, is there uniqueness there?
Yeah, we've done some research in terms of, because there is a bunch of employee engagement software that companies use, and most of them just serve the option of rewards is Amazon or gift cards for like Starbucks or Target, stuff like that. And I don't see we couldn't find anyone offering Bitcoin gift cards. So so that would be different, you know, from the current solutions in the market.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's cool. I think it's a very interesting way to go with it. In terms of brand personality, can we look at your brand a little bit too? I'd be interested in seeing what it currently like is at right now. Have you gone through like a design phase or?
You can just go to our website, gift.cash. Lisa, if you just go there, you know, those things were built quite fast for the hackathon, for the tournament.
Oh, I know, yeah.
So just bear in mind that those things are temporary, of course.
No, that's totally fine. We're in the early stage of building. Lisa, are you pulling that up, or is that
I can send it to you, Lisa.
I just saw. We also don't have to.
I was muted.
Oh, no problem.
Here we go. Okay.
There you
go. Great. So yeah, everything like, especially if you're like just in the early stage of time. I mean, the website looks perfect, but Ed, if you're still here, I'd be interested in here. So when it comes to like thinking through brand personality at this stage, you really want to try and like think through like, as you build your brand colors and you build like what everything looks like. I think you kind of want to fit into like who you're going after. In this case, you're talking about like employers that are going to be offering this type of rewards and like thinking through colors and things that look either familiar to them or can kind of stand out against them. Ed, do you have any thoughts about that? Like as you like think through early color designs and building your brand and trying to make things match the marketplace versus like building something that stands out completely?
Just okay. Sorry to interrupt. Just a quick disclaimer. We put the site live before we decided to change a little bit of our focus to go to employers. So the copy on the website is still outdated, I would say.
Perfectly fine. We're talking about early stage companies. We pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course. First thoughts. Really fun graphics in here as well. I think there's like pictures talk 1,000 words kind of. So I think that if you can get really clear imagery and sort of infographics for people to kind of pick up on as well. That is also, I would say, just as important as coffee. You mentioned color schemes. Blue tends to kind of signify trust. It's used a lot by sort of banking and neo-banking applications. So you see it quite a lot in the sort of the financial industry. Obviously, if you're looking to target Bitcoiners, you could probably get their attention with the color orange. But sometimes this signifies kind of danger in people's minds. So you kind of want to be careful with that. But you can use all sorts of different types of color schemes, just obviously keeping things consistent. Am I right in thinking that you guys have used a UI kit, or definitely for the application? Have you used it for the website as well? Is this the same dashboard kit?
No, it's not. It's not the same template, but we adapted things to be more consistent. Like type font, the fonts and the weights and the colors. To be consistent.
Right on, for sure. I guess so. My thinking would be obviously that if you're trying to, and like you said, you've kind of just pivoted, so maybe the website doesn't portray this. But if you are looking to try and get sort of companies on board, if this is your target audience, then you might want slightly different copy or sort of visual imagery that you use, which maybe signifies more. Maybe it's more on like the professional sort of end rather than sort of the playful spectrum. I think that nowadays quite a few companies take lots of different directions. Just because you're a fun company doesn't mean that you're professional and you're really good at what you do. But considering that, first of all, you're going to be attracting larger companies, so maybe you're going to be doing sort of bulk gift cards for employees and things like this. First of all, I think with them, you're going to want to signify trust. And then secondly, obviously, because you're giving away a financial product, I think, again, you're going to probably want to reinstill that level of trust. And having a friendly copy as well, particularly on a website, goes a long way, because with a lot of these products, sometimes you're going to need to be on calls with people from the help center or people who are in the sort of the customer relations department as well. So making sure that that's kind of clearly displayed on the website too usually goes a long way. But I like what you guys have got here so far. It seems pretty clear, like what the use case is, what you're trying to offer as a product. And I think these things are really clear. Obviously, sort of getting in touch, or as I mentioned, kind of like a help button if someone's using a product and they want to get some help. That's also really helpful to have, usually towards the bottom of a landing page. I love the logo too. I have to say, I love the logo.
Cool, thanks.
I do too. I think that I think I had a lot of great points, and yeah, especially when you start getting into talking to employers, it really is a decision whether you keep it fun or like I'd suggestion. It's you can make it look very professional, that it's used to the websites people are going to. I don't think you have. You don't necessarily have to do that, but really, as long as your message is clear in here, I think that's the most important thing, because once they get here, they really need to understand what it is you're selling. Explain it how it works very clearly. That'll be an important thing, especially if you're dealing with some people in the HR space that do not understand a thing about Bitcoin. Making it as clear and concise as what it is and how it works is going to be important, because you want that person that comes in here with zero knowledge about Bitcoin, but is a senior manager that's going to sign off on the idea, be able to get up to speed fast with what it is you're doing, and make it not seem like a huge deal in a sense. I'm glad we looked through this. It's great. Yeah, I'm excited to see as you continue to revamp it, as you kind of do your pivot to talking about employers as well. Lisa, do we want to pop back over to the Miro now?
Yes. Let's see here.
That is, it's funny. One of the notes I was going to say about this too is when it comes to branding and marketing, marketing has to happen, especially once you have an MVP, you have to be marketing in some way, whether you're actively going after people. But one of the things with branding in these early stages is you're going to pivot a lot. You're going to change as the technical side of things continue to evolve. something changes and you spend all this time on branding something that doesn't really exist anymore because now you're doing this. So there is like layers to like the importance of what we're doing and also being ready to adapt and change it as needed. So that's great. We'll come back to talking about like the overall brand at the end, but let's start going through some of the like marketing strategy questions. If you can just zoom out a little bit. So when people talk about like marketing strategy, these are kind of the topics that come to mind. In my mind, it's like a market analysis, like what's the opportunity out there, looking at your customers and where they are. There's the competitive analysis side, like seeing who your competitor are, who has the same kind of product, who has a product close to you. This is also, excuse me, what comes into like what makes you unique is important to really understand the competitive landscape. Your market position plays into that. Like if you're going up against a competitor that has a huge lead already, it gets more important to understand where you are in the market, to understand how to define your differences early. Your marketing plan, which can be, you know, what kind of content you're creating, where you're putting that content, and then obviously marketing budget comes into play. I don't really think like going through this helps, especially at like the kind of stage companies that are in Bolt Fund and thinking these early stages. This is very much when I spent years at Prudential Financial and in your marketing team of 100 people, this is like where you spend all day. We don't need to do that now. I do want to talk about the funnel right below it, though, because this is kind of how I think about everything for marketing at almost all times. It's just the marketing funnel going through awareness, which is getting people to know about your brand, consideration, trying to get people to consider actually using your products, and then conversion, actually getting them to adopt. So I'll just talk about some of the marketing tactics and how they kind of fit into that funnel, because like I said, it's really like every day I think about where in that funnel people are and what customers and how the audience differs, where they kind of fit into that. So really like awareness tactics can be like your social media, your SEO, your paid media. Again, at that point, we're not early stages. We shouldn't be paying too much. Press releases, or in this case, like public forums, like the people within Bolt Fund reaching out to other people participating in the program and reaching out and getting those early adopters. That's like your high level awareness up top, like just getting out there so you can try and find your prospects. When it comes to consideration and you're kind of nurturing those prospects, your marketing materials that play into that are really going to be your website. I think that's the biggest thing to me, is that someone heard about you, they come to you, and they're going to consider you. You need your website to kind of sell them that first big sale there. So it's your website. It is articles. Maybe you make some videos, whether that's like explainer videos on how your product works or just like why your product matters. And any kind of like in-depth content relating to that consideration, just trying to get people, across the finish line. And when it comes to conversion, so that's really your last look to get those customers. And it depends what kind of marketing you're doing. Like in the B2B world, that could be like thought leadership and white papers and sales meetings. In B2C, it could be salespeople. It could be like site-side retargeting. Someone comes to your website and you send them an ad, or you send that, like they see an ad on social media because they've already been to your website. Or it could be like email targeting at that point. They've gotten into your email list. You're sending those kind of like marketing emails, those sales emails to try and get them to actually buy your product. So the reason I wanted to talk about this funnel and why I love it is because when you start like defining your audiences in marketing, you want to think about how they fit into this. Because I find it very important to think about where they fit into this, because you kind of need different messages depending on different audiences too. So let's say you have your main target audience is, I have a workshop for this. Let's slide over to the right and start that. I forgot that I put all these questions here to start doing it. I operate like I'm doing a whiteboarding session at all times, just rambling and thinking. Was I too all over the place with that funnel, or does that make sense, everything I just said? Good. All right. So
makes sense.
In this case, we can start like talking about defining your target audience. So how would you define your target audience at this point? I know we said it a little bit earlier, but just however you want to say it.
I would say the employee engagement platforms.
Employee engagement platform. Great. Is there also just employers directly, or do you think that the way it's being built, it would have to go through a third party employee engagement.
I think the employee engagement platforms could be a good channel to distribute our solution to employers. So I believe employers in general, there should be some employers that don't use employee engagement platforms, but that would be a longer shot, I would say. So
yeah, and it's also a much longer sales lead we're talking about too, because not only you have to get them in there, you have to then get them either using that platform, or if we're talking about, like, depending on how you build your product, if everything's going through that, and if it's more difficult to go directly to employers versus them going through one of these platforms, it's different. So in that case, I would define your core audience as employee engagement platforms, but at the same time, your audience is also employers in general, because they're going to be the ones that want to hear about the product as well. In this case, we're talking about a pretty big audience, but it's really important just to figure out how big your audience is. I feel like from the employer side, are you thinking about launching this specifically in? I didn't even ask where you're from. Where are you from?
I'm from Brazil, but I'm not focused on Brazil because our economy is horrible. Focused on the US.
But you're a World Cup favorite, so you got that going for you.
I would trade a better economy for the World
Cup. So you said where's the focus? Sorry.
I would say US.
US? Okay. So basically, if you're defining that audience, it's basically how big is that audience. You can look into like US employers. Also understanding, it would be important to like understand and figure out like how many employers and therefore employees are on different employee engagement platforms, because that'll be good. I'm sure like if you're talking with like a business representative from some of these platforms, they could give you that kind of information to make you understand that like, hey, it's 50 employers, 1 million employees. Just like defining that audience is important, because you can start looking into targeting on them. So like, let's say, let's say the title is employee engagement manager, and that's what the title is going to be on LinkedIn. You can start looking up information to find what that normal title is. And you can also look into targeting employee engagement platform workers themselves. So that way you can start putting marketing materials in front of them. So I think in your case, the where are they is pretty easily answered at this point. Like when you're doing any kind of like B2B engagement like this, you're really going to look for them on LinkedIn. Like that's probably the channel that you'll find them on, because that way you can target them specifically by their titles. So that's good. So we know that our primary target is employee engagement platforms that are going to want to use our product. We know the second layer to that is getting employees in general interested, both whether they're using the employee engagement platforms or we're talking longer sales cycle employers. How big the audience is, we know how to find that. We can talk to those employee engagement platforms and where are they. Again, there'll be different ways to target these people, but in your case with this kind of B2B, you're going to want to find them on LinkedIn. Yeah. Any questions there talking through that?
No.
Cool. So the second part of that is, I didn't even get to my other part down there. I forgot to talk about that. So just in general, the reason we started talking through this kind of brainstorm thing is just like the idea of first principles. It's just like, what do you have to do first before you do anything else? And really we wanted to define our audience, understand our audience, understand the competitors, and then from there come up with like a content and a media strategy for branding. That's like the very core of what we need to do. And we started with defining your audience, and now let's try and figure out how to understand your audience further. So what do your customers need? So if we're thinking through like the employee engagement platforms, how does your product like stand out or become special to them that they get excited to have onboarded you? And I'm trying to think with some of these employee engagement platforms, are they through this strategy, have you like done any reaching out to them and talking with them yet? Or is this like the plan?
Yeah. No. I just have one scheduled meeting. So cool. I have not talked to them yet.
Yeah, but it's in process. It's in process. And you literally just changed the plan anyway. So it's good. That makes total sense. So in the early days, my first thought is like how I'm marketing to those employee engagement platforms. I want to understand them a little bit more and understand what makes them excited to promote your products. Mm-hmm. So let's say, you have a Bitcoin gift card, and you want them to promote it. You want to find out like how easy it is to get on their platform. Some of these companies may just like throw every option that they have available onto their platform, or some may be selective and be like, all right, we only offer 15 things, but it's because we've vetted these 15 things and we love working with them. So I think through there is like finding out like what they're looking for in onboarding new products like yours. I think that makes a lot of sense. You want to have that early conversation to also find out how they can market your product going onto their site. So whether that is, all right, they now use GiftCash. Yeah, let's just employee engagement platform. We'll call that employee engagement platform is now offering GiftCash. Are they going to promote any of that on their front page for you? Are they incentivized to promote you early on their page where they get either a harder percentage if they push you further, or you negotiate some kind of contract that they promote you for a while? Is there any side of it that they want to gain something from you from this, whether maybe it's like a press release they're excited to announce from this, where you can get some kind of momentum and they can get momentum at the same time? And I'd really ask them too, like what kind of their struggles are in terms of like onboarding more people, so you can understand how to kind of provide value for them. That's what it all comes down to, right? It's really like providing value to these companies that they want to promote you. So are they going to be the first company now offering these kind of Bitcoin incentives for you? That's the kind of thing you need to like think through, and why these employee engagement platforms care about your product. So that's something that I think you really could get, especially in this B2B space. You can really get that from a conversation and just think through it. It's not like going there and, wanting to just like get them to like figure out that way that like you're helping each other, that by you launching on their platform, you are helping them. Like it's a mutual beneficial opportunities. And with the same side of that, that's where marketing materials kind of come into play, thinking through there too, is that now that they're selling your product, should you be making marketing materials, or are they making marketing materials that will promote that now you can get Bitcoin gift cards through what you're doing? I find that really interesting because like, let's say you're going to launch and there's some kind of co-branding you could do. That's going to be like a huge thing where instead of just getting on the platform and great, now someone has to pick through a list of what you're offering, think through like the marketing side of that, of like, how can we launch together? How do we throw fuel on this fire to like get people excited in the early days about, your launch? They might even employee engagement things might have a newsletter, like think through like an email newsletter that they may have that goes out to employees that they're going to send out to say like, hey, now you can get GiftCash is now part of that. Can you do any kind of like custom material that would go out to them, whether that's like an HTML file or like I can't think of the name for the Microsoft files, where like you can make this launch email so that way you're using their employer list for that big splash. So understanding your audience in the sense that why are they excited to use you? How do you provide value for them? And how do you make the most of that early launch is going to be like really important. And I kind of talked about both questions in my rambling there. I'm really good at rambling if you haven't noticed, but that's kind of my thought process there, is like understand what this employee engagement platform wants, what they need, and how your product helps them, and what kind of marketing materials could go into it. I think like a branded email or a social media or a press release is really what happens there, but understand that audience. And yeah, any comments there? I got to take a breath every once in a while to remember if you want to talk through stuff.
I think it's oh, sorry, Party, you could go first. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Elisa.
No, I was just gonna say and refer back to the first workshop when we discussed value proposition, that it's so important that you both think about the end user, but also sort of the customer or the the customer's customer. You have to think in different steps here. You have to think about different actors during the down the value chain in principle.
Yeah.
So very interesting discussion, Brian.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the first mover advantage is really clever, because there are a bunch of employee engagement platforms, and I think it's going to be hard to get the first one. But once we get the first one, then we have something to tell the other ones that you should also join on board, because there is a clear differentiator in the room. So I think this is good. And also the other idea of how we can incentivize them to promote us, maybe a revenue share, because I don't know how it works, but I would bet that they do not earn any money from Amazon gift cards. So maybe, if they earn money from our gift card, then they would promote more us instead of Amazon. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to keep us moving because I know we're 40 minutes in already. So let's talk about competitive analysis. So really, I mean, I don't know how much deep diving you've done into like all the competitors in the space, but I think the biggest thing to talk about here really is like when you think about your competitors, don't just don't focus on other maybe Bitcoin companies that may be trying to do gift cards or trying to do different things like that. Really like go through the platform and understand like everyone that's on there. Like what is every other gift card on there? What is every other employee incentive on there? I see a lot of people as they start things or start thinking through like marketing strategies where they get kind of focused on like who does something very similar to what I do. I think you need to think through who is doing like outside of Bitcoin, outside of this. It's like how am I going to stand out against everything? It's like it's we can't get caught up in just thinking about who are my competitors doing exactly this. It's like how am I competing against an Amazon gift card? What's the differences there? Where's the incentive to do that and create marketing materials that show the value of that? The way I would think of that is if you're making a marketing material for why you'd want a Bitcoin gift card, it's like, hey, this is extra cash. This is extra cash. And now it's, you probably can't say this from compliance side, but now it's like an investment for you. Now it's like, hey, this extra little bonus, let it, it might be able to grow. It might be like, just think through it in those kind of terms of like figuring out like what makes you unique to other gift cards in that sense, whether, if you're making them so people spend them right away, that's one option. But if you're looking at it from like the angle of like trying to like the hold side of it too, like maybe there's something there you can play with. And just in general, I just like to stay like really up on what all competitors are doing. So like what makes people successful, like really just go in and see what you love about their brand and try and understand it and see why they've had that success. And that'll probably be even from like not just about like other companies that are working with these employee engagement platforms, but like look at the employee engagement platforms themselves and try and understand why certain platforms are more successful than the others. And that could even lead to some insights in terms of how you stand out, regardless of what platform you get adopted to, like what worked across that. So a lot of this comes back to those core values too, because once you've looked at the competitors and you see what's out there, you can kind of find your niche, like finding that place where you fit in and where you want to stand out and kind of define what you do.
Cool. Makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking about the competitors and maybe like as you said, the substitutes. I think we have a lot to learn from Amazon gift cards and prepaid Visa prepaid cards, because they are the substitutes from our product. And I've read some reviews online of people actually complaining about employee engagement platforms because the Visa prepaid cards are not very useful because they could not add it to Apple Pay, for example. So we have to understand how we can differentiate from that.
Yeah. figure out how you differentiate and then tell everybody. Like,
Yeah.
like find that factor and then tell everyone.
I think that if I might be able to chime in here, I think this is a really interesting point, because I think a lot of people quite often they think, oh, my company is a Bitcoin company, therefore it's not actually related to other tech sort of products or companies that are sort of building things. For example, you mentioned Amazon there. And I think a lot of the time when founders or young entrepreneurs, when they're building a Bitcoin company or a crypto company, whatever it might be, Bitcoin in this case, when they're looking for sort of competitors who they can sort of analyze their product next to, they're thinking, is this a Bitcoin company? And it's very easy, I think, to sometimes craft a pitch deck where you do a sort of a competitor analysis page, and actually you just sort of say, well, actually, we're the only ones who are offering this exact solution, but with Bitcoin. So we don't have any competitors and we're going to take this market. But actually, you really need to look at those non-Bitcoin companies as well and think, okay, why are they not yet integrating Bitcoin? How easily could they integrate Bitcoin? Because if Amazon turn around and they say, we're going to start spinning up Lightning gift cards, what does that do to your business model? And if you're approaching an investor as well, particularly, they're also going to want to know that you have a relatively foolproof model, which can also sort of withstand if Amazon were to just integrate Bitcoin into their gift cards, or if other companies were as well. So I think that thing is really interesting to talk about. And just because you're a Bitcoin company doesn't mean that you're necessarily completely separated and different from the rest of the tech ecosystem. And it brings up another point, which maybe we won't get into right now, but sort of the thing around sort of maybe some industry standards. But this is kind of what we're talking about now. How can we make Bitcoin companies grow and look as fantastic as other products in other parts of the sort of tech ecosystem? So just bearing that in mind is my 2 cents or my 2 sats.
No, it's a very important point and something that people need to be thinking about. So I'm glad you brought that up. Great. Any other notes we want to talk about for the competitive side of stuff? We can start talking about content next. Cool.
Go ahead.
So I really only put one note behind content strategy, but really I just want to, something I think about a lot. You're not competing against your competitors for content. You're competing against the internet. You don't need to make 1 million pieces of content. You need to make a couple good pieces of content. And that doesn't mean like from your website and being designed well and like having some like figuring out how you talk to people on social media, things like that. It's not really coming about that. There are some like standards to that. But if you're going to start making videos, or if you're going to start making ads, or you're going to write a paper or blog post, you really want to make sure that you're making something that's going to be interesting to what you do. So just throwing it out there that I've just been in marketing organizations before where they think like, oh, we have a new product. We need to make a video, a print ad, some social post. And it's just like not everything needs everything. Think about it that way, is like what actually adds value to the kind of content we're creating. So this is where I wanted to talk about, and I'll give my note about media strategy too here. So when I think about media strategy, I'm always thinking about the right place at the right time. That's the most important thing. There's a lot of different ways to reach people. You always are thinking through what platform can I actually get in front of my audience. We talked about in your case where we're a little B2B, where it's going to be like, there's going to be like specific examples, especially from a cost perspective and just in general, just finding them perspective. Like it's just going to be really efficient when you're in B2B, that LinkedIn tends to dominate in that space. But thinking through that, I almost don't want to go too much into it because I can talk about a couple $1 million budgets when it comes to media strategy. Is very different than like being strategic. I don't have money yet, or I have money, but it really is better served for runway than doing ads all over the place. So not going to dive too much into the million different like ideas there behind media strategy, but when it comes to content strategy, this is kind of where I want to look at that funnel again. So I talked about this earlier about how I think about this kind of funnel at all times. And the reason I talk about this is about creating different content for your different audiences. So on one hand, when you start thinking about like materials that you'd want to give to these employee engagement platforms, you can start by doing, like where you have some tweets that are trying to gain awareness in the space, and you're using some hashtags like employee engagement and whatnot. And you start thinking about making a video. Like, okay, there's going to be a video that's going to be a very simple explainer that's like, oh, like to incentivize employees in Bitcoin, like you give a stat about like 40% of Americans like would love to receive a reward in Bitcoin. And then it comes back to like you can use it on this app, and you make it so it's you make like a simple video like that that's short and sweet enough that just like the quickest pitch of what you do with like one good stat about employee engagement that will get them excited for your product. When you have those different audiences now, we have the core audience of those employee engagement platforms, and you have that employer platform. You may want to be talking to them differently in terms of different stages of the funnel, just because they're kind of similar in this case. But when you're talking about like employers and we're talking about like a really long runway, you really want your material just to be like short and sweet enough that they learn about your brand and maybe get to your website. Where if you're targeting these people in marketing materials for employee engagement platforms and you have their email already and you're sending out an email, you want to like really kind of get that full pitch together for that. Like that might be like a longer sell, and like, once you have someone into consideration, like you might just want to like have a really hard sell on employee engagement. This can work like my sample is a little bit different. I can kind of tell you a little bit about how it relates to Wolf in general. Like I think that kind of is better. Like I think through like content I'm making differently for like who we're attracting to our program. Because on one hand, there are Lightning companies that already exist that maybe they, could kind of use the expertise that StoneRage and NYDIG will give them, that like they're a little bit more down the funnel and I want to create content that appeals to them. And then there's people that are just starting a company that might be a developer that has just like an idea and they think they can build it. I might want to create content that's different for them. And thinking about my funnel long-term, developers, Johns had written that great article that was shared a few weeks ago about like attracting more better developers to the space. Like I want to make marketing materials for them that's going to explain the vision of Lightning, what we can do, what we can create. So there's like an even greater need for them to like really understand about Lightning. So we just talked about 3 different audiences of like show value to companies that are somewhat established and could use that push or whatever, our networking, our whatever they need that we can provide. There is I'm a developer and I have these skills and I'm working on something. I think I can do it. And there's like the business side of it that really is going to come in huge play there. It's like, I don't know how this makes money and I don't know how to build it. And now we're talking about attracting young talent and doing there and getting them excited about Lightning and bringing them in. And hey, when I graduate, if I have a good idea, I could apply to a program and get in. I just talked about 3 different audiences that all go into the same funnel, but need different materials talking about where they are. Because like there's a lot of different value that we can provide, but it's different for each audience. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this and where everyone comes into the funnel, because you always have something here in terms of awareness, consideration, conversion. Further down, there is like the loyalty and like the keeping people in it. But when you think about your different audiences, they're going to interact with your brand at different times throughout their learning about it, finding out more, and considering actually using it. So that's just what I wanted to talk about this funnel. I think in your case, where our audience is pretty succinct, that like we know we can kind of hit them with similar materials, but just figured I'd explain that because that won't be all the case for a lot of like B2C companies that are just going after consumers, and they can be different consumers like no coiners or Bitcoiners that are just hold and don't spend. Like there's a lot of different nuance there. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly. Yeah. So we talked about your audience a little bit. So I think these are usually scheduled for an hour, right? I should we're in like the slightly keep going wrap up space.
Yeah. We got 7 more minutes.
Great. Let's cook. So if we're talking about like your content strategy for now, What kind of like materials have you thought through? Have you thought through some different things that you want to start building at this point, or are we still so close to the B2B switch that we still haven't dug into it there?
Yeah, I was thinking about like try to schedule a meeting with like key players in the industry, like on a few different employee engagement platforms, and just try to go on those meetings like like I know nothing about your space, and just please teach me what the struggles are, and let me know if what we are thinking about can be helpful. So in terms of materials, we were just thinking of maximum like a pitch deck, maybe increase a bit of course we have to fix the copy for the landing page. But I was not thinking at the moment. Please correct me if you think we should do it. But I was not thinking about actually like putting up blog posts or stuff like that, because I don't know yet what's considered valuable for them. So I first need to learn what do they consider to be valuable, and then later to have the content itself, like written content or maybe videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think you need that right away. I think you're right. Like the pitch deck is what you need. And the good news is like, if you have a strong pitch deck, you don't really say that much in it. You don't have that much copy in it anyway. Like you just have like a couple key points. It's one of the best things that you can research and learn about is just building a succinct pitch deck. And like you said, if you're just having if you're not really pitching someone the first time, if you just find someone that's willing to talk to you and answer some questions, maybe you don't even have to have that deck in the first time. You're really just asking questions and learning from that. I do think you can build an initial one that just like matches your website, uses your imagery that you feel good about. And just like I said, it's like have a couple lines, keep it simple with what your vision is, and just continue to pivot that after every conversation. Like I can almost guarantee you that in your first meeting, someone will say a word about your product, like, oh, like that's interesting because of like, for like I'm guessing that they would talk about their younger audience or Gen Z. It's like an exciting new opportunity for Gen Z. It's like someone says that to you in your meeting, and you're like, all right, swap out the copy on that slide. Like this is how they interpreted that, and they got excited about that. Use that. I think from there, you can talk about, you go through a couple of these meetings, you hear what they say, then you can kind of put together your first kind of infographic. I also would suggest after you do that, you could probably start it right now, where you do something on like SurveyMonkey and you run kind of some kind of survey and you find out what kind of like you get some stats. We polled a couple thousand people, and they said to 50% of them were interested in receiving a employee incentive in Bitcoin. You could then share some social posts about that, use the hashtags that are tied to that industry. And here we are, we just created like 6 or 7 pieces of content that kind of pull your brand together, pull your strategy together, have a unified message, and also makes your company look, not to say like this, but it's more puffed up than it is. It's like you're still in the early stages of figuring it out, but now you have like a little ecosystem of content that is telling a strong story, that is listening to the customers. I mean, that is what marketing and advertising is listening to the customers, finding out what they want and giving them what they want. You now like have several pieces of content just from like a couple of meetings and, a couple Figma sessions with someone more talented than I.
we actually have the MVP working. Like we have a working product, so we can, if we have the opportunity, we can just demo, to the person that we are having a meeting. And another thing that I just thought about is that I don't know if you guys know how Jack Dorsey was presenting Square in the beginning, and he was presenting by just actually grabbing the credit card from the person, just charging with his phone, the credit card, and that was a magical moment for them. Maybe we can, at the end of the meeting, just give them a gift card, just send them via email, to the person that we just talked to, as a thank you or something like that, and just so they can see how it works, as a customer, in the end.
I think an interesting point to that too. Like, let's say you send them that Bitcoin. Is yours completely Lightning? I assume, or is it Bitcoin? Okay. So I would say too, if you're going to do that too, like maybe one of the concerns that a person would have is like you send them Bitcoin and they can't use that. They can't use it because they don't understand Lightning. They don't know that there's use cases for Lightning that exist already. I would figure out a way so that way they get that gift card and they can use it too, whether there's explainers about where you can spend it. Because now we're talking about, okay, someone was really excited about this product. Someone else was like, all right, I'll join the meeting, but I don't want to send people things in Bitcoin. They can't even do anything with it. You now kind of made a customer journey that goes from like, oh, wow, look how easy it was for them to send me a gift card in Bitcoin. Oh, wow, I just spent that Bitcoin. Think through that too, because with many Bitcoin and Lightning products, you kind of have to think about the haters too. It's like you gotta kill them with kindness.
Makes sense.
I think that's super important, and I think many other projects in this tournament can benefit from this. That you really need to focus on giving the user an experience, and not only like, oh, we're gonna make these people interested in Bitcoin. We need to make them interested in an experience. And that experience involves Bitcoin. Yeah, that's just fact. So it's but the most important thing is that just try to make everything an experience. And I think that's a way we can work with this skepticism towards Bitcoin. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think in terms of media strategy for your early days, there's not too much to talk about just yet. I mean, I've used social media to keep some kind of a brand presence, and like I said, LinkedIn and Twitter is probably the two places you want to live for now. But if we want to talk about, I know we're at time. If you want to talk about that in more detail, we could always schedule some time and discuss that more. So.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else we want to wrap up? Lisa, did I leave anything off? You did an amazing job keeping track of my rambling. I'm very thankful for you, and thankful that you put together these workshops along with Johns and Ed, who I didn't get to say this in the beginning. You guys blow me away with how much work you guys do and putting this all together. So thank you for what you do for the community. It's pretty incredible.
No, thank you guys so much for. Sorry, I'm putting my hand up. I have some music playing in the background here. Thank you guys so much for putting the time into this workshop. I wouldn't mind just asking one question, just to leave things on, because I think it might be quite applicable to a lot of people watching. We talked about budgets. If you have large budgets, small budgets, what to kind of concentrate on. For people who are taking part in this tournament, maybe they have, if they're lucky, maybe they have one person who can focus on marketing or content creation strategy, these types of things. What advice would you give to a lean team? Maybe someone who has one person doing this, maybe people who are kind of doing it themselves, maybe learning as they go along the way. What advice would you give to someone who has a low budget but wants to make as much impact as possible?
Yeah. I would say there, by the way, that song in the background is bringing me back to college. It's very funny. I've not heard that in forever. Yeah, right. I would say that keep your message as clear as possible. I see so many times, whether it's a website or people talking about what their product does, where they just say too much. I'd rather say less and keep there like a mystique behind it, almost like keep it simple. A Twitter post, whether you're B2B, maybe a LinkedIn post, wherever your audience is, posting can be a pain, but it doesn't take that much time. Figure out simple messages to convey you, sharing what you're doing, sharing the way people are using your products. When it comes to like overly designing stuff, I mean, the fact of the matter is like the code that you're writing and making something that people actually want to use is so much more important than any of the branding. Marketers are good at marketing. I said this to Lisa the other day. It's like we're good at making it seem like we're really important, and in many cases we are. But having a product that people want to use is the most important thing. So if you're working on something and you're building that product and you're talking to customers, that's more important, especially in these early stages. Talking to your customers and understanding what they want, understanding how they're using your whatever you're selling, whatever you're creating, understand how they're using it, and getting that feedback is more important than any of this. So especially in the early stages, just keep on building, keep innovating. Don't be scared to pivot, and just be clear about what you're doing. Say it as clearly as you can, and everything else is, I hate to say fluff, but everything else you'll worry about when you have the funding to worry about. It's like at the end of the day, like someone that's going to go out there and talk to customers and hustle and try and get people on board is going to be as important as anything else.
Awesome.
I can just add that I think that also you can create a lot of synergies from what you are saying, Brian. I also totally agree that try to just build a product that actually gives real value to the user is the main important thing here. But we could probably also build synergies from word of mouth and trying to engage users to sort of share their experience with others. And be not only like sending information, but also trying to engage people, being out there, putting out questions, asking people to, can you test this on your friends, and trying to get people involved as well. So that it will give you insights to your development process, but also spread the word out there.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
And I think Ed was actually talking about us, because we are just two, and we're both developers, and we do everything over here. You know, building GiftCash has been an amazing journey. We have been actually the very first day that we decided to build GiftCash was on the first day of the tournament. And we have been building, and it was the first time that we built something on Bitcoin. So figuring out Lightning and the node and stuff, liquidity, it was quite fun. But also we have to make something useful. So when talking to users and actually showing them what we have and asking them to use and sending out gift cards in mass, in bulk, we realized that maybe we should pivot, and maybe we should focus a little bit on a slightly different target audience. So it's been quite a fun journey.
and plenty of ways to keep learning and keep building too. Best of luck to you.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, guys. Well, we can leave it there for today. Guys, thank you so much again, Brian, Lisa, Porto. Thank you again for coming in as well. Sorry for the trashy music in the background, but what can you do? We're in El Sante. Taking me back to the 80s now. Cool. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming along and talking about this sort of stuff. I hope that maybe in the future we can do some more branding and marketing and sort of business development workshops with you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that all the people who are taking part in the tournament or who are watching from home have also learned a thing or two as well along the way. Thanks again, guys. We'll catch you soon. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.